You checked the size of the unit last spring. The contractor confirmed it was right for the square footage. And still, every night, you close the bedroom door and wake up sweating. The supply vent is right there on the ceiling. Cold air is coming in. You can feel it when you stand beneath it. So why is the room 69 degrees at 11 at night when the rest of the house is 64? The air is going in. It just has nowhere to go. Most homeowners who face this never get to ask that second question. They stop at the first one. They check the supply vent, confirm airflow, assume the system must be undersized, and start calling contractors for quotes on a bigger unit. Some of them spend $4,000 replacing equipment that was never the problem. The room stays hot. The new unit is larger, runs shorter cycles, dehumidifies less, and now 2 rooms are uncomfortable instead of 1. The fix for what you're describing costs less than $20, takes a Saturday afternoon, and requires no licensed technician. But before you can do it, you need to understand why air stops entering a room that already has supply air. It is not about what goes in. It is about what cannot get out. Here is the part that surprises almost every homeowner the first time they hear it. When you close the bedroom door, that room becomes a pressurized box. The supply duct is still pushing conditioned air through the ceiling vent at the same rate it always was. Your air handler does not know you closed the door. It does not slow down. It keeps delivering roughly the same cubic feet of air per minute it was designed to move. But now that air has nowhere to exit. The return grills in your home, the ones that pull air back to the air handler to be cooled again, are almost always located in hallways, living rooms, and central areas, almost never in individual bedrooms. So, when you close the door, you have severed the path between supply and return. What happens next is physics. Building Science Corporation describes this directly in their technical reports on room pressurization. When a room receives supply air without a corresponding return air path, the room pressure rises above the pressure in the hallway outside. That pressure difference is the force now pushing against every cubic foot of cold air trying to enter through the supply vent. The duct is still delivering air to the vent opening, but the room is pushing back. According to Building Science Corporation, pressure differentials as small as 3 pascals across a closed interior door are enough to measurably reduce airflow into a room. At 5 pascals, the reduction in delivered air volume becomes significant. The cold air slows. Some of it finds gaps around the door frame and leaks back into the hallway, never entering the room at all. What you feel when you stand beneath the supply vent in a closed bedroom is not the full volume your system is designed to deliver. It is a fraction of it, throttled by the pressure the room itself is building against the incoming flow. ASHRAE Standard 62.2, which governs ventilation in residential buildings, acknowledges this mechanism explicitly. The standard recognizes that rooms served only by supply without a dedicated return path will experience elevated static pressure relative to adjacent spaces. This is not a flaw in your system. It is a consequence of how most residential duct layouts have been designed for decades. Contractors run a supply to every room because that is what gets inspected and approved. Return paths in individual rooms, especially bedrooms, are routinely omitted because they add cost and complexity and are not universally required by code everywhere in the country. The result is a duct system that looks complete from the outside and functions partially at best when interior doors are closed. Now consider the timing. The room that pressurizes is almost always a bedroom, and the door to that room is almost always closed at night. This is not coincidence. It is the precise moment when the mismatch between supply and return does the most damage. During the day, when the door is open, air moves freely between the room and the hallway. The return grill in the hall serves the bedroom indirectly. The room cools. You walk in at 7 in the evening and it feels fine. You assume the system is working. You close the door at 10, fall asleep, and by 1 in the morning the room is 5 or 6 degrees warmer than the thermostat reading in the hall. The system has been running. The air handler has been cycling on and off based on the temperature at the thermostat, which is in the hallway, which is comfortable, which never calls for more cooling. The bedroom, sealed and pressurized, is heating up on its own. From body heat, from electronics, from the heat that migrates through the wall from outside. The system does not know. The thermostat does not know. And because the bedroom door is closed at exactly the moment cooling is most needed and the pressure differential is highest, the room gets no relief. Building Science Corporation has documented this pattern in field studies of residential HVAC performance. Homes with central return systems and no room-level return paths showed bedroom temperatures at night that ran consistently 4 to 7 degrees warmer than the thermostat set point when interior doors were closed. 4 to 7 degrees is not a comfort issue. It is a sleep quality issue. It is the reason you wake up at 2 in the morning and turn the thermostat down to 61, overcool the rest of the house, and still do not feel it in the bedroom until 45 minutes later. Before you spend $1, you need to confirm this is actually what is happening in your home. The test is simple and requires nothing but a single sheet of paper. Close the bedroom door completely. Leave the air handler running. Wait 5 minutes. Then slide 1 sheet of standard printer paper into the gap at the bottom of the door from the hallway side. If the paper is pulled inward toward the room, that means the room is at lower pressure than the hall, and air is moving from the hall into the room. That is not your problem. But if the paper is pushed outward, away from the room, and into the hallway, the room is pressurized. Air is escaping through the door gap because the room is pushing it out. That is your problem. You have confirmed a closed room with supply air and no return path. The paper test is a low-technology version of the pressure diagnostics that building scientists use with manometers in the field. Building Science Corporation recommends this visual check as a first-pass diagnostic for homeowners before calling in any equipment. If the paper pushes outward, you know what to fix. Here is how to read both results. If the paper is sucked inward toward the room is under-pressurized relative to the hallway. That result means supply air is not reaching the room in sufficient volume. The problem is on the supply side, not the return side. A blocked duct or closed supply damper is the more likely cause there. If the paper is pushed outward into the hallway, the room is overpressurized. That is the return deficit described throughout this video. According to Building Science Corporation, a room with supply air and no return path will always push outward on a paper test. That is the condition a transfer grill or jump duct is designed to correct. Note your result before moving to the fix. The fix has 3 levels. You start with the one that costs nothing. Undercut the bedroom door. This means having a gap of roughly 3/4 of an inch between the bottom of the door and the finished floor. Many interior doors are installed with very small gaps, sometimes less than 1/4 of an inch, which is not enough for air to move freely in either direction. A larger gap does not fully solve pressurization, but it reduces the differential meaningfully by allowing some return air movement through the opening. If your door already has a substantial gap and the paper still pushes outward, move to the next level. The next level costs around $20 at any hardware store: a transfer grill. This is a simple louvered grill, typically 6 inches by 10 inches or similar, that installs through the drywall between the bedroom and the hallway, or between the bedroom and an adjacent room that has return access. The transfer grill creates a dedicated air path at the wall level that allows pressurized bedroom air to relieve itself back into the return system without passing through the door gap. You cut the opening with a drywall saw, insert the grill frame on both sides, and secure it in place. No ductwork, no wiring, no permit in most jurisdictions. According to Building Science Corporation guidance on room-to-room pressure relief, a single 6x10 transfer grill is sufficient to relieve pressure differentials in most standard bedrooms up to around 150 square feet. For privacy, the louvers on each side of the grill face in opposing directions, so you cannot see straight through from one room to the other, and sound transmission is reduced compared to a door gap. If the transfer grill location does not work because of wall assembly, insulation, or the layout of adjacent spaces, the third option is a jump duct. A jump duct is a short section of flexible duct that runs from inside the bedroom ceiling or wall cavity over the door partition and connects to the hallway ceiling or an adjacent return side space. This requires access to the attic or ceiling cavity and is typically the kind of work a skilled homeowner can handle in a half day, though some choose to hire a duct technician for it. The cost varies by home, but is generally well under $100 in materials. ASHRAE guidance on return air pathways in residential systems lists jump ducts as an accepted engineering solution for rooms where return grills cannot be installed directly. There is one thing you must not do. Do not block the supply vent in that room to reduce the pressure. It seems logical. If pressurization is caused by too much supply air entering with nowhere to go, reducing the supply air would reduce the pressure. That part is technically true, but what you're actually doing is depriving the room of the conditioned air it needs to reach set point temperature. The room stays hot, but now it stays hot and has reduced airflow. Some homeowners go further and close the supply vent entirely. Now the room is thermally isolated from the system. In summer, a closed room with no supply air and no return path and heat gained from outside will climb steadily through the night. You have not solved the pressure problem. You have converted the room into an unventilated box. ASHRAE and Building Science Corporation both caution against restricting supply airflow as a balancing strategy because it shifts the pressure problem without resolving the return deficit and can cause the air handler to operate against increased static pressure, which shortens equipment life. The supply vent in your bedroom is doing its job. The cold air is arriving. The system is sized correctly. The contractor was right about that. And you do not need a new unit. What you need is a path for air to get back out. One sheet of paper at the door gap will tell you in 30 seconds whether this is your problem. A $20 grill at the hardware store will likely solve it completely. The hottest room in the house is usually not broken. It is just sealed shut. The room was never broken. It was just holding its breath every time you close the door. Close your bedroom door right now with the AC running and slide a piece of paper under the gap. Tell me in the comments, does it get sucked in toward the room or pushed out into the hallway?